3 wise women managed to stop a king from killing and restore peace. All 3 worked towards the same goal, faced similar circumstances, and achieved it by their own strength. Their role is to teach us compassion and forgiveness in the world. 3 women, and all 3 appear in the book of Samuel specifically, and it is said they were wise. Abigail, she was an intelligent and beautiful woman, 1 Samuel 25 verse 3. The Tekoa woman, so Joab sent someone to Tekoa and had a wise woman brought from there, 2 Samuel 14 verse 2. And the woman from aboutThe, a wise woman called from the city, 2 Samuel 20 verse 16. We will try to find a common characteristic for all of them. Abigail embarks on an almost impossible mission to stop a warrior wielding a revenge sword. 1 Samuel 25 verses 21 to 22. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him." Abigail has an artful way of containing David's anger. It begins with several sedatives. The first thing Abigail does is surrender. She falls, bows, and uses terms such as "Lord" in her addresses to David to demonstrate her submission to him. The second thing is consent. Abigail harshly condemned her husband and his actions. "My lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name means fool, and folly goes with him." 1 Samuel 25 verse 25. And the third thing of reconciliation is compensation. Abigail brought David and his men bread and wine, sheep, barley, raisins, and dabbles and sent them as an offering before her, just as Jacob did before his meeting with Esau. After all this, she carried and explained to David the consequences of his current actions on his royal future. The speech has a twofold action. On the one hand, it strengthens and flatters David by referring to his royal future as a certainty. On the other hand, it makes it clear to him that by a wicked deed, he is creating a threat to the moral foundation of his throne's establishment. His wars are justified as long as they are done for a holy cause. However, as soon as he takes up the sword for personal revenge or out of anger, this casts doubt on all his wars and killings, and the suspicion arises that they too came to serve selfish purposes. 1 Samuel 25 verses 28 to 31. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God, but the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant." Abigail's success is reflected in the fact that David does not feel that he has succumbed to a woman's pleas for mercy for her family. Rather, he understands that she has saved him from an unnecessary and harmful killing and thanks her for that. David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me." 1 Samuel 25 verse 32. There are similarities between Abigail and the woman from aboutThe. The woman from aboutThe faces a difficult task: to restrain an angry army minister in the midst of a battle, while he is certain of the justice of his war, the destruction of the rebels in the kingdom. 2 Samuel 20 verse 15. All the troops with Joab came and besieged Sheba in aboutThe. They built a siege ramp up to the city, and it stood against the outer fortifications, while they were battering the wall to bring it down. The circumstances surrounding the woman's actions are unknown. Why would she turn to Joab of all the residents of the besieged city? Where are the official leaders of the city? Moreover, the woman's success must be explained. Joab granted her request without any unusual demands, apart from punishing the rebel in the kingdom. The justification for Absalom's rebellion was actually the rebellion itself, which raises the suspicion that Joab had a personal motive. In fact, it was the residents of Abel and its leaders who probably feared that Joab would not be satisfied with the blood of the rebel and would demand the blood of all the citizens of the city who gave him shelter. This is where the courage and wisdom of the woman come to the fore. She turned to Joab and worded her words in a militia way. There were many interpretations of her words, but Joab's answer clarified what she meant. "Hand over this one man, and I'll withdraw from the city." 2 Samuel 20 verse 21. The woman also asked that an entire city not be punished for the wrongdoing of one person. The woman also asked that he not do it at the fault of one person. Joab's answer still does not allay the fears of the residents, who fear that his anger could consume the city after the extradition of Sheva ben Bakri. Even the act of extradition itself endangers the city from a military point of view. Joab's bold warriors can take advantage of the opening of the city gates, and will try to break into the city. Joab's interrogation of the rebel could also incriminate any collaborators who were present in the city. It is clear that there are some, as he initially received shelter there. This is where the wisdom of the woman is expressed. Joab has committed to leaving the city, and the wise woman has accepted the conditions, albeit with different terms than those that Joab had intended. These conditions suit the city's interests, and they are enough to convince even the people of the city, who are afraid of Joab's revenge. Joab said, "Leave him alone," meaning alive. However, there are all the risks mentioned above, and there is reason to believe that Joab is plotting something. The residents may reject such an offer. Therefore, the wise woman takes advantage of the fact that the negotiations are taking place in public, as well as Joab's words of justification in his statement. "Far be it from me." Joab replied, "Far be it from me to swallow up or destroy." 2 Samuel 20 verse 20. The woman said to Joab, "His head will be thrown to you from the wall." 2 Samuel 20 verse 21. By displaying the rebel's head, there is no risk of an attempt to break into the city, and Sheba, son of Bichri, will not incriminate any of the city's residents in his investigation. This way, the city will remain closed and fortified until Joab lifts the siege and leaves, thus ending the event without unnecessary bloodshed. Unlike Abigail, the grieving woman's task is not to find a way to the heart of the military man who is about to attack her home, but to soothe the city's residents and convince them that there is a safe escape and a solution to their plight. The scripture also emphasizes this. Then the woman went to all the people with her wise advice, and they cut off the head of Sheba son of Bichri and threw it to Joab. 2 Samuel 20 verse 22. The Tekoa wise woman, like her predecessors, works against bloodshed. However, she does not calm a man in the storm of battle, but rather in the storm of emotion. With her words, she brings David to allow Absalom's return to Jerusalem. In her parable story, the general lessons, and the message to David, important words of her defense are said about the value of life and the great risk of taking away the right to discuss the rights of souls. The woman is not defending Absalom the man, but rather his right to live even after the terrible act he committed. In her story, the woman proves how cruel and even evil doing justice can be. Those who seek to do justice, that is, to redeem the blood of her murdered son, actually intend to do evil, to deprive her and her remaining son of her husband's property. The success of their plot will cause another, terrible injustice. It will leave the widow bereaved and lonely, without a family and without a continuation. To understand her power, one must take the course of her conversation with David. Here, it is worth noting that Joab guided her in her actions, but he could not guide her in the specifics of the dialogue she should have with the king, since it is impossible to predict the king's reactions. The art of conducting a conversation and gradually leading it to a conclusion displays the woman's skill. First, the woman told the king about the incident. "I, your servant, had 2 sons. They got into a fight with each other in the field, and no one was there to separate them. One struck the other and killed him." 2 Samuel 14 verse 6. Although the murder happens to be between 2 brothers, it is difficult to blame the remaining brother for the murder for 2 reasons. First, there were no witnesses and no warning. Second, it can be said that the action he took was in self-defense. The described situation reminds us of the incident of Cain and Abel in the book of Genesis. Cain was not punished with the death penalty there, and God was the judge. On the other hand, there is a similarity between Absalom's situation and Amnon's, in that both of them committed criminal acts and thus both feel guilty. Is this similar to the story of the Tekoa woman whose brother had been murdered, and who may have threatened her brother's life during the struggle, thereby causing his death? Furthermore, Absalom did not commit murder with his own hands and thus cannot be condemned as a murderer. In the story of Absalom, King David is actually similar to Uriah the Hittite. There is an attempt here to arouse King David's conscience so that he would forgive Absalom. The woman concludes by announcing the dire outcome that is about to occur. "They would put out the only burning coal I have left, leaving my husband neither name nor descendant on the face of the earth." 2 Samuel 14 verse 7. As a busy judge, the king replied that he could not exhaust the matter at the moment, but due to the severe threat to the widow, he was willing to handle the matter without making any promises. The king said to the woman, "Go home, and I will issue an order in your behalf." 2 Samuel 14 verse 8. She did not accept King David's answer, and found a way to continue the conversation using her wisdom. But the woman from Tekoa said to him, "Let my lord the king pardon me and my family, and let the king and his throne be without guilt." 2 Samuel 14 verse 9. Here, the woman expresses her dissatisfaction with the king's answer, her words said in a questioning tone. "And let the king and his throne be without guilt." She asked the king, "In case you neglect to protect my son, and he is killed, will you remain free from this?" The king responded to her words. The king replied, "If anyone says anything to you, bring them to me, and they will not bother you again." 2 Samuel 14 verse 10. King David accepts the responsibility of protecting her son, but still does not fully agree to the woman's demand, so she continues the conversation. She said, "Then let the king invoke the Lord his God to prevent the avenger of blood from adding to the destruction, so that my son will not be destroyed." 2 Samuel 14 verse 11. The woman demanded an oath from David to protect her son, and eventually succeeded in doing so. "As surely as the Lord lives," he said, "not one hair of your son's head will fall to the ground." 2 Samuel 14 verse 11. The woman suggested to the king that he should have mercy on ordinary people, while the members of his household are judged with discretion. The woman said, "Why then have you devised a thing like this against the people of God?" When the king says this, does he not convict himself, for the king has not brought back his banished son? 2 Samuel 14 verse 13. Now the woman says very wise words, and they should be considered the peak of her speech. Like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be recovered, so we must die. But that is not what God desires. Rather, He devises ways so that a banished person does not remain banished from Him. 2 Samuel 14 verse 14. Like other verses in the Bible, these cases can be interpreted in the following ways. 1. Death is inevitable for all of us, there is no escaping it. 2. Death, unlike anything else that happens to us, is completely final in this world, and there is no return from it. 3. Even God does not bring the dead back to our world. 4. Therefore, we are commanded to behave like God, to be moderate and forgiving in judgment, and to beware of vindictiveness and pettiness. From these things, two conclusions are required. The first addresses the judge, and the second refers to the condemned, even those condemned for murder. In any case where this is not necessary and required by law, the accused must be pardoned. There are few instances in the Bible where characters act in such a significant way without being identified by name like the two anonymous women. This is most evident in the case of the Tekoa woman. When Joab goes to speak with King David, the woman disappears. As far as the incident is concerned, she has fulfilled her role and is no longer involved. The positions of the two women were similar to those of angels and prophets. These two mysterious women are identical to the appearance of the prophets and angels who are God's messengers. Many times, angels and prophets appear anonymously. Their role is to teach us to downplay bloodshed and increase compassion and forgiveness in the world. Search for peace is a common denominator for women's wisdom: Abigail, the Tekoa woman, and the woman from Abel-Beth-Maachah. Although the three women have no connection in terms of background, place, or status, but all three worked towards the same goal, faced similar circumstances, and achieved it through their strength. The one thing they all have in common is, save a life in the most difficult circumstances by disabling combatants and finding a peaceful solution that is acceptable to them. The women in this portrayal are aware of the value of life. They bring life into the world, despite the suffering in childbirth, and make life more valuable, so they work to postpone the death sentence. We hope you learned something new today. If you did, give this video a like and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative and entertaining content. See you next time.